The following is a presentation of the arguments for and against mandatory labeling of food derived from cloned animals. Even though the FDA opened the door to cloned animal food products a number of years ago, no commercially viable products are on grocery shelves at the present time. It is predicted that milk from cloned cows will be the first such product, with meat from cloned animals still years away, if ever, from being commercially viable. On the pro-labeling side, the main argument is that consumers have the right to know where their food comes from and how it is produced. Today's reality is that most consumers have little knowledge of how food is produced, and much misinformation regarding animal production and welfare is circulated by groups whose agenda is to end commercial animal agriculture. Those opposed to mandatory labeling fear that by labeling produce as the product of animal cloning, it somehow sends the message that the product itself is different and or potentially harmful. Is it a warning label? Labeling of food products is under the regulation of the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, which is a branch of the Federal Department of Health and Human Services. The mission of the FDA is to protect public health by, among other things, assuring the safety, efficacy, and security of the nation's food supply. The FDA also oversees regulation of pharmaceuticals for both human and veterinary medicine and cosmetics. As consumers, we also feel we have a right to know certain information about these products too, as evidenced by the inserts found in drug packaging. We may not like the sound of the side effects of a drug, but we trust that the benefits outweigh the risks. Food labeling has evolved over the last 100 years or so, starting with simple rules about truth and quantity to ensure consumers were getting what they paid for, to today's mandatory nutritional information to aid consumers in making wise nutritional choices. Today's nutritional labeling is designed to help consumers, but many either do not read it or do not fully understand it. The evolution of food labeling is the result of consumer advocacy and the right to know what is in the food we eat. The next phase of labeling, also consumer-driven, is information about how food products are produced. Although there is no government mandate to disclose this information, many food producers are finding that terms such as natural, organic, or cage-free help to boost sales. With regard to food from cloned animals, there are a number of consumer concerns with these products. Many view it as unnatural, unethical, and unsafe. Are these concerns valid? Cloning can occur naturally. Identical twins are clones. Artificial cloning manipulates what are essentially naturally occurring biological processes to produce genetic copies of an animal. There is no addition of DNA from any other sources. If there is a future for commercial animal cloning, it will probably lie in somatic cell nuclear transfer cloning, or SCNT. SCNT involves the harvesting of DNA from adult differentiated cells of the animal to be cloned. This DNA is inserted into a denucleated egg donor cell, where it then has the potential to form an embryo which can be implanted into a surrogate. The success rate of this process is still fairly low, and this is one of the major limiting factors for commercial use of cloning. SCNT is still really in its infancy, and there are problems with birth defects and other abnormalities. These animal welfare concerns have led some opponents of cloning to call for a ban on animal cloning research altogether. Researchers counter that as the understanding of the process improves and the techniques are refined, rates of defects should decrease. Some opponents of cloning argue that the products produced by cloning pose a threat to human health. There is no evidence to support these claims, and the FDA acknowledged this in 2007. If food derived from cloned animals does gain commercial viability, the next hurdle it will face will be consumer acceptance. Consumers do have the right to know how their food is produced, but they also have a responsibility to base buying decisions on solid information rather than propaganda spread by activist groups with an underlying agenda. The food industry and those involved in research have a pivotal role in ensuring that science-based facts are presented with unbiased truth. The same is true of the regulatory agencies.